push the button for the YouTube stream.
And I have started streaming.
Now recording.
There we go. Welcome to the Yang Gang Roundtable. It is 12/13, Friday, January 15th. I'm here with Ariel, Faye Doney, Faye Koo, and we have Austin Searle, our guest here. Thank you very much for being on our show, Austin. We are a UBI advocacy podcast. We don't always agree on our politics. There are a lot of us. It's a roundtable format, and the people who show up to every individual episode are different. So today we have a nice intimate group. What I know about you is that you are running for the Senate in the state of Utah, which is fantastic. So please tell me more about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Austin Searle. I am a Democratic candidate that's going up against Mike Lee in 2022. First, I want to kind of introduce like my background and where I come from and all that. So basically, I was born in American Fork, raised in Lehigh, which is just the next town over, just southeast of American Fork. When I have moved to Lehigh in the early 2000s, me and my twin brother, we got into recording music. So we have always dreamed of being a musician, mostly rap and hip hop. We have been a recording artist for about 10 years. We didn't see a way forward and continuing our music career. So then we have attended college for graphic design at Stevens Henniger. After a month of attending, they have realized that our high school diploma wasn't an actual diploma. It was more considered more of a certificate of completion. So we couldn't continue. That was one of the reasons which, if you visit my website, austinforsenate.com, you'll see that one of my proposals is that we eliminate a certificate of completion, as no college will accept it, as we were informed after graduation that a certificate of completion was the exact same as a regular diploma. And for those who are not familiar with what a certificate of completion is well, all you basically have to know is that it just means you completed high school. The reason I want to eliminate it is not for the fact that we were lied to in regards to it was being a regular diploma, but for the fact that you basically have no future and completely waste of graduating, in my opinion, unless you want to, tell people, oh yeah, I've graduated with a certificate of completion. Anyways, and then I have met my wife at the time I was in a dark place. She taught me so much in regards to wanting to be a better person and having a better relationship and fellowship with others. She has taught me a lot. I have also started a nonprofit called Relationship Quotes, which our main goal was to help others with their relationships. The nonprofit organization was doing fairly well, and to this day, it's still growing. So this is where we get into politics. So my twin brother is the one who had say, hey, check out this guy, Andrew Yang. So I watched an interview of Andrew Yang and instantly became a Yang supporter. I have done many things to help out the campaign in regards to phone banking, talking with local communities about Andrew Yang and that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's basically all there is.
I just want to say a couple things. One, I think it would be really cool to have like a senator who wants to do hip hop and rap. Like,
Wait, who are you running against again? Was Romney or the other guy?
No, it's Mike Lee.
Mike Wee. Wow, we never hear about him at all. Like his name never makes any kind of like news or any kind of anything.
That's true because he does nothing for Utah. Honestly, like you talk to people down here about Mike Lee, like who is Mike Lee? Like we've never heard of him. So basically, he what sucks though is he that Mike Lee has voted against stimulus bills because he doesn't
It's
agree
like
with
not only
giving.
does he not do anything, but he also stops people from helping. Like,
Egregious. Just an absolute villain.
Yeah, like we have to get him out of office. You know, he says that he's accomplished so much for Utahns, but you know, you talk to Utahns around here and they'll disagree with you, like with Mr. Lee.
Yeah. But he still gets elected over and over again. Who are his constituents who think he is worthy of representing the state of Utah?
so are you running as oh, go ahead.
So basically, in 2016, when Mike Lee got reelected, Misty Snow was the one who ran against him. She's a transgender here in Utah. Me and her we had a nice conversation about Mike Lee not too long ago, actually. So we're just, we're all wanting to come together and potentially just retire him because, we need someone in office that's wanting to do a lot for the state that he represents.
That's really cool.
Austin,
So
That
basically, I think we need more.
I
do
think
you
it's
have
very progressive for them, like someone who's trans to run. I think that, especially in Utah, like, but that might have also not worked in their favor. So, but that's anyway. Yeah,
So are you
cool.
running as a Democrat or Republican?
Let's say that again.
Oh, are you running as a Democrat, Republican, Independent?
Yeah, Democrat.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
Austin, do you have a website yet where you would like people to find you if they wanted to find out more about you?
Yeah, austinforsenate.com. You can go there and check out the website, volunteer, donate. We're trying to reach around 1,000 by the end of the month. And the donations that we collect from supporters will go towards getting the message out in Utah. Yeah, it's kind of hard to do shows like down here, like public like rallies and stuff or attending events because of the pandemic. So a lot of people's like not doing any events or stuff.
So I find that interesting. We had a couple of questions that we had prepared that we wanted to ask you. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So one of the first questions that our friends asked was, what are your like major policies? What would you consider your top 5, things you'd like to get done?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. My top 5 policies are, for one, UBI, because I think UBI is a way to end poverty, as most of us can agree. The second is Medicare for all. I believe. Very good.
I was just going to say you are at the right podcast. If there's anything we believe in together, is the UBI.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of us can agree on the UBI. A lot of us are living in poverty, which is unacceptable.
The great unifier, poverty.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm thinking like so like how do people in Utah kind of like know you, or do you have any kind of like things out there like signs, or is it all like an online campaign or?
That's also a great question. So we're actually waiting until we raise enough funds so that we can get the message out in regards to like, creating like flyers and like posters and stuff that we can hang around the communities. All that will come directly from the campaign and the funds that we raise.
Yeah.
So I think we only got two of the policies you wanted. Do you want to keep going there?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Kind of got it.
Do you want to actually speak about the Medicare? You said Medicaid for all or Medicare for all?
Medicare for all. Yeah, because basically Medicare for all is not just a human's right, but it is also a right. If you need to go to the doctor's office when you're sick or on the verge of dying, you should have the right to see a doctor or even go to a dentist. When you're in pain with a toothache, we should not have to pay out of pocket for medical needs. So I think that's an important one.
Yeah.
I think probably all of us agree that even with the UBI, we're still going to need other additional government programs, and medicine and healthcare is definitely one of those.
Yeah, that comes to mind foremost after the UBI. The second thing I would think of is we need M4A. Like if I were to do another like complete dedication to a cause, that would be, well, maybe my third after like electoral reform. Yeah, so those things.
So let's just see the calculus here. So Mike Lee is a Republican.
Yes, he's
Okay.
definitely a Republican.
Right. And like what have you gotten like why he keeps getting voted in, or like is he just one of those culture war Republicans who's like against abortion and like we don't want communists and stuff, and then everybody just automatically votes for that just because he says like these few things? I mean, like how is he?
Yeah, so basically why I think he gets reelected is basically the message that he puts out during his campaign. If I can pull this up here, because there's a great, I think it's on his website.
And I don't mind talking a little bit about Mr. Lee, but I would
I'll
really
figure
love to hear
it out later.
more about. Yeah, I'd love to hear actually more about the types of the other priorities that you have.
Okay. We could give him free coverage.
Yeah,
or
so the other one. So the other one is affordable housing, which is another policy of mine. I think, house prices have gone up, and I believe that people should have the right to afford. They shouldn't have to afford like $1,500 for like a 2-bedroom apartment.
Now, isn't Utah where they started first with the Housing First initiative, where they
You cut out there for a second, Faye. You said were they, and then I didn't hear the rest of the question. Uh-oh. We got a consistent problem. A persistent problem. Still got no audio from you, Faye. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
how's that?
There you go. That's it. That's perfect. Thank you.
Can you hear me better? Okay,
Yes.
so we've got I believe that I had heard that Housing First was a Utah initiative to basically provide homeless people with housing directly.
Yeah, that's funny that you actually bring that up because we actually see a lot of homeless people still on the streets. Um, they're basically, they're on the side holding signs up. My wife was actually, she worked at a hotel, cleaning rooms and that type of stuff. She noticed a lot of them that were just trying to get money on the side just to, stay in a hotel, just have a place to sleep. So I think we can do better on in regards to making housing more affordable. Uh, I
Well, yeah, because those are two different things. Once somebody's already homeless and then you give them housing is a whole different thing from just making it affordable in the first place so people can actually stay in housing and be able to afford homes as a poor person. So I'm not saying that your initiatives would be in conflict at
mhm.
all with the homeless initiative, but I thought it's really interesting that Utah had set a an example for the rest of the country. Um, so
Does anyone go out and go and talk to the people who should know about this housing? I can't talk today. I'm so sorry. This housing for the homeless. Like, who takes care of that? Who reaches out directly?
I think
So
okay, go ahead.
so basically, no one's helping out with the housing. The housing prices have gone up, and my proposal is basically we lower the the prices on the housing altogether. I think it's a right to be able to afford to um to afford a house.
And how would you accomplish that? What does your initiative do?
So basically, how I would accomplish this is, uh, if I have to, I'll set forth my own bill and get other senators on board, because I believe that affording a house is a human's right. You should be able to afford, and I'm not one of those that's afraid to stand up and speak the truth. Um, so I believe that we can definitely accomplish something like this.
Does anyone remember Andrew Yang's affordable housing policies?
I mean, I know about it, but I don't think I've actually read it.
Okay, well, I think he had talked about zoning, for example. And is that an issue in Utah? Does zoning affect housing prices?
I believe that zoning does have a part in it. I don't think it's like the major cause of why housing prices are going up and people not able to um, afford a place.
It's interesting. When I was okay, so you don't know much about me, but I'm currently in very small town in Alabama, but I'm trying to help the even smaller town next to it. Because it's a dead city essentially, and people still live there. And I started doing a lot of investigation by talking to locals, right? And what I found out by the local mechanic, who pretty much knows everybody, is he's already paying for other people's like livability, right? Their own places, blah blah. He's like, all we need are mobile homes, but zoning won't allow us to get new mobile homes here. But he's like willing to help that process, right? And but the town itself is only 1,200 people, right? And it's pretty divided by blacks versus whites, or African Americans versus white, and so um, he finds that a struggle. But when I talk to the white lady, who's an elderly lady here, she's like, well, they have all the services they could possibly want to make sure their needs are met. And I'm like, I hated to do this to her, but I'm like, what I see with my eyes and what you're telling me are not in alignment with each other. Whatever has caused that problem needs to be resolved. Maybe they don't know about it. Maybe they um, need their hand held through the filing process, blah, 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 blah. Right. Like, I was like, something needs to happen. And it's not like they don't exist. If you say they exist, I believe you. But that doesn't mean you're solving problems. Right. And so she was very upset at the way I kind of was calling it out, because it sounds like she might have been part of the reason some of these things happen. You could see the intention was there. She didn't. I don't think she's ever investigated the success of things, and instead, when I talked about universal basic income, she's like, oh, well, that's going to make people lazy. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, you're already complaining that they're stealing, right, and not doing anything. So maybe this might even be better for them, where they can actually meet their needs. But I
Hang on,
drove around that town, and these places are just like falling
Faye.
apart. It's
I don't
disgusting.
I don't mean to like say, but is this woman uh African American or not?
White. She's an old white lady.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, for God's sake, isn't that like a majority black town?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the
Yeah.
businesses, you know, um,
So
well,
so so an old white lady, like, so, but this kind of pisses me off. Who probably like has like what? I mean, did her ancestors own slaves?
okay, we're not gonna go down that route,
Yeah, but
Ariel.
like but
We're
no
not gonna go that
wonder
route.
that she's having this mentality that it's like, oh, well, they're just lazy, won't do anything. I mean, like, it is the like, I like to call these people lazy brains. It's like, well, at least when you test it out, you'll see if it like works or not, because all of these toxic stereotypes are in the heads of these old people who have no idea what the people that they're supposed to be representing are going through. Is she
Well,
like in a position of power or not? Like,
I
what's
mean,
going
it
on here?
sounds like she's really involved in her community, right? But the I want to just add some stuff. Okay, I might have been the first person to ever even explain this concept to her, right? And when that happens, you kind of like, okay, this is my first initial reaction. There's different stages of yang or whatever it was, right? Uh and so essentially I want to expose people to the idea and not judge them for not knowing, not judge them for having this kind of reaction. Because I think it's pretty visceral. Like when that's just everything they've known. Plus the world people grew up in is nowhere near what it is now. Right. So I'm
So
trying
I
to make
wanted to bring it back to what we're talking about in terms of Utah's affordable housing.
Mhm.
I think that New York City, now that Andrew Yang is running for New York City mayor, he's taken down the yang2020.com again, and so we're no longer able to access his old policies, which were a lot more, directed towards the entire country rather than just New York City. But he has put up a policy for an affordable city on his New York City, running for mayor of New York City website, the new one. It's yang4ny.com, Yang for New York. And people can browse his policies there. And unfortunately, Utah is probably pretty different from New York City. And so I'm not sure how this would, help Austin in terms of, planning. But I'm sure that he has his own ideas about what's going to work for Utah. Do you want to continue talking about affordable housing, or do you want to tell us some more priorities that you have, Austin?
Let's jump into some other policies here. There's another one that I'm not sure if a lot of people agrees with or not, but that is legalizing gambling here in Utah. So basically, I know we've tried to fight for legalizing gambling here in Utah, but Utah, I believe Utah, and there's another state here that does not have gambling legalized. But anyways, I believe legalizing gambling is a right. I know the reason why it's not legalized is because of the Mormon population in Utah, and a lot of Mormons disagree. But
Well, there's
I
quite
believe
the
that
Mormon population there, isn't there? It's like the giant building that's beautiful right there. It's kind of the centerpiece, isn't it?
The Mormon
yeah,
temple is definitely Salt Lake City's pride,
here
isn't it?
That's an interesting thing we've gotten to talking about here.
So Austin, are you do you participate in the Mormon community?
no, I have not. I live in Utah, but I'm not a Mormon.
I think-
How do you feel that affects your ability to run for office there? Is that a big problem, or is that something that's people can get past?
There's actually a lot of non-Mormons here in Utah as well. I don't think that has effect in any way to run for office. You know, you don't have to be a Mormon to run for office. I think that a lot of people will agree with that.
Well, I think that there's obviously there's not any legislative requirements, but I think that it is an interesting thing that you would have to find a way to forge those connections while if you were a leader in the community.
Yeah. One of the things is getting out there and letting people know why you're running. If you say, "Oh, I'm a non-Mormon here in Utah running against Mike Lee," that's not gonna, in my opinion, it's not gonna matter. I just think getting.
Can I pop
Is
in here?
Hi, Kai. Sorry, I
Hi,
didn't say
sorry I was
hi right
late.
away.
I had some business to take care of this morning that popped up.
We started asking the questions that you had written up yesterday, so
Oh,
we're already on his third policy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. But I'm hopping in on what you were asking, Faye, about this interesting intersection between religion and people who are running for office, right? And specifically with Mormons, which is it a whole different take on what's mainstream Christianity. So there are the people who understand where the Mormons are coming from and understand how it works. And then there's like the rest of us, and it seems very odd and very foreign. And I'm familiar with this particular thing because I married into one of the original Mormon families. And so my children kind of belong to that religious tradition, the way that I belong to the religious tradition of the Quakers. And so this is where messaging becomes ultra important. And Jeremy and I have talked about that in terms of the politics here in Missouri in general. Now, one thing is the town that I was born in, which is Independence, Missouri, is like the Mecca of Mormonism. So this is close
Wow.
to, yeah. So Mormonism is basically, you can think of it as North American Christianity. So we have the Native American religions, and then we had other religions that organically evolved out of American culture, kind of. And Mormonism is a uniquely American religion in the sense that it's its stories all happen in North America. It's stories about what Christ brought to the world all happened on this continent. So it's very disparate from again, mainstream Christianity, although they also believe in the Bible and the Old Testament the same way that most mainstream Christians do, but they have the other revealed texts. And so
Right.
like this becomes then where UBI is I love that it's universal. The universal aspect means it bridges the gap between secular and religious. So this is one of those unifying things where the principle of charity that is embedded in almost all major world religious texts is embraced by the universal component of the UBI. It
Yes.
represents the universal respect that is given to us for existing at all, with the idea that the fact that we exist at all is justification in and of itself, because our own existence is against the odds.
So
whether
I
you
understand what you're saying is that even though Austin's fourth policy that he was just mentioning is the legalizing gambling in Utah, may not be, a Mormon, they may not feel that they're attracted to this policy. But the fact that his primary policy is the universal basic income, that could be attractive enough to override some of those other considerations.
Well, and in other states that are very also, religiously based, including Missouri, including Kansas, both of which have legalized to some extent gambling. And almost all 50 states participate in Powerball lottery. That's a national lottery, right? And almost all the states have their own lottery system. And lottery is gambling. It's gambling. Wall Street and insurance, those are gambling enterprises too. Mormons
stock.
engage in all of those things. This is where the beauty of the Constitution, at least what I see in it, is that we have the ability to express those personal, very meaningful beliefs individually in our lives by choosing to engage or not engage in something that is but it's not the role of the government to legislate morality. And many right-wing people are in favor of establishing legalizing gambling, because I mean, I'm gonna like paraphrase something that was my dad's kind of media heritage from The Music Man. It's like, you're inviting trouble, my friends, right here in River City. So if you not just decriminalize it, but full on legalize it, then it's under state control and there's revenue associated. And then you can make the argument, although it's a fallacious one in practice, that you can use all that money that you're raising to benefit the communities and go into the schools and the roads or whatever is, right? Like, that's the sell to the deeply religious people. It's like, this doesn't really affect you, it affects the rest of us, and you get the benefit of the revenue it generates for the state. So that ends up becoming, the gambling that happens ends up becoming a public good, especially if you know that the house always wins. And I can talk a lot about gambling because I worked in one of the legal casinos in Kansas City.
Yeah, so this money could be used to fund some of the great policies that Austin wants to bring, like making housing more affordable. That will be his primary policies, would be very attractive to everybody, including Mormon constituents.
Well,
I
Native
wanted to say hi
Americans.
to
Oh.
I wanted to say hi to Mia, who just joined us. And Mia, thank you for inviting Austin to our program. Oh, I think Mia's still getting her mic on.
I wanted to bring up the fact that Native Americans get a per capita check from their casinos. Every person in their tribe financially benefits and has cushion. My ex-husband was Native American and he received only just like 100 something every month, right? But when we first got together, we were both jobless. That $100 really did keep us afloat. It wasn't great, and whatnot, but it was a small, tiny little lifeline that ended up benefiting us in the beginning, you know?
Every little bit helps when you're living on a budget that tight. You know,
Yeah.
$5 is a couple gallons of milk at the end of the month. That helps you a lot.
And how much is a pint of blood? When people start selling their plasma off in order to survive, I find that amazing. I believe there's probably people doing that in Utah.
Yeah, how much do they do? Like, I've never heard. Like, how does the plasma market work?
Oh, plasma, like you can donate 1 to 2 times a week, I want to say, and the amount varies depending on how many times you've donated, but they want you to have time in between donations in order to have your body replenish the plasma, if you will. If that's right. I think that's right.
But it's like self-reported, right? So they don't really know if you have or haven't. If you're very poor, you may be trying to, give up more of yourself than you can really afford to do.
What's fascinating is I'm still in contact with my ex-husband, and he actually still donates plasma. That was kind of like the workaround when we were first super broke. He's got a job. He has steady income. He actively donates to people who need help. I'm like, this person needs help. They're like, okay, and so it's a very healthy relationship at this point between me and him. But that extra plasma donation is almost just his donation money to other people, which I think is beautiful because the source of it is actually helping others' health as well. But it's sad when people have to do that, right? Who don't want to do it. I have a fear of needles. I don't want to donate plasma. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry.
So Austin, do you have a fifth policy for us? I think that was your fourth.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming in now.
Okay. Sorry, I kind of cut out. But yeah, the fifth one is disability resources. I believe that those with a disability of any type needs to be treated equally. They need enough resources provided to them that will help them. And this may seem like not much of a proposal or policy, but I believe that in our school system, giving those with disability more resources, more resource classes. We have special needs classes for those that are special needs, but what I am proposing goes beyond those classes. We need educated tutoring class provided to those with learning disability. We need to think the way we act or what we say around those with a disability, as some of them may be hard to understand and may act in a way that you may not be able to know what to do or how to help them. I believe disability resources is a big one down here in Utah.
I want to point to something some of my research has talked about. I would call that social health services. Essentially, recognizing that we interact with people that are not similar to us, but we need to be able to communicate in a way that they are receptive to. It's not derogatory. Acknowledging them as a human equal. We're both humans. Look at that, right? But also the fact that they aren't necessarily um, uh, people are more mindful around them, and I think that's important for them to feel included, right?
So
yeah,
Austin,
definitely. Mm-hmm.
Austin, I wonder how all of these things get put together into a full a vision for the future there in Utah, and how will you make sure that vision gets realized?
That's a great question. So my vision is to have a better path forward for all, including those with a disability. So Americans are not struggling, as well as letting the American people have their voices heard in the United States Senate, not just their vote being their voice. The economy does not work without the people. I believe we can bring hope back by building a better economy that works for the people. I will accomplish his vision by being in office, because I am not one who is afraid to stand up and speak the truth. And I will fight every day that I am in office to bring this vision to life.
Have you
That's awesome.
activated any of the Yang Gang to help phone bank for you, or any of these other things that the Yang Gang could help you? I mean, we're really good at Twitter trends and helping other states push this universal basic income concept. Have you reached out to these networks for free networking, essentially?
So I've reached out to a lot of Yang Gang. I've reached out to some of the supporters of Bernie Sanders as well. As I believe, that it's important to get as many people in on this campaign as we can. Utah is not one that takes millions of votes to beat Mike Lee. Mike Lee only got 600,000 votes in 2016. Misty Snow came up about halfway. She was about 300,000 votes. So it's not like we have to reach 1 million votes to win Mike Lee. I believe that with the help and with people, even if people is not in Utah, they can still donate to the campaign. It's not like, oh, you can't donate if you're not in Utah. Obviously, that will help the campaign a lot. But I believe that if we come together, that we can definitely win and take back the Senate. Utah is actually out there. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. I hope you're not being distracted by my son. He's 7 years old and playing Legos in the same room with me.
Oh no, my headset just keeps cutting out, so it keeps transferring the noise to my laptop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a lot of technical difficulties sometimes amongst the regular speakers, even of the podcast, because sometimes our equipment isn't, perfectly working, or we just don't have the money to replace something. So anyway, we have also some recent events right now that are going on that are very concerning. And I think we should maybe switch gears and talk a little bit about I know that you're running for 2022, but obviously you must be very interested in what's happening in the Senate right now, if you're going to become a U.S. Senator. It looks like the impeachment of Donald Trump is going to go to the Senate, but it may cut into the first 100 days of the Senate time under Biden. And so the question is, with McConnell delaying the discussion about the impeachment until into Biden's administration, is that going to be ultimately, difficult for? Is it, it seems like is that actually kind of a tactic to prevent Biden from getting as much done as he would like to get done? And there's just so much work to do.
I don't know. I honestly, personally don't know. I think that Biden will, or has already talked with McConnell, and they've both kind of claimed that they are interested in moving forward with both at once, like his policies and the impeachment hearings. But does that actually play out? I have not seen cooperation from these two sides in any reasonable way in a very long time. I don't know if it's just a pipe dream.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Mr. Searle has any concerns about what should be happening in the first 100 days when Biden takes office.
Right. So yeah, I'm all for impeachment. While Republicans may oppose to impeachment, some may agree. I believe this will put pressure on Biden's administration because of the main priorities that Biden had put forward. Some in which include, getting this pandemic crisis under control and giving the American people relief. They impact the delay of what Americans need in Biden's plan to slow down this pandemic. As we have seen, this being the second in America's history of impeachment of the president, I believe we should focus more on this current crisis we're in and protecting our people, opposed to impeaching Trump for the second time, as we can have, as this can have impact on Biden and the plans that he has to move us forward.
So, what do you think they could, if they actually had their focus on doing what they wanted, what do you think they should really be focusing on right now?
So I believe that, like, are you speaking like terms of like Biden or the impeachment?
Well, it sounds like they're just not going to convene until Biden is taken, has become president. And so once they start convening in the first 100 days of his presidency, that seems to be some sort of, a mile marker that people use to see, what can be accomplished. It seems to be important politically. So would love to see, for example, are they going to be passing that $2,000 stimulus? They keep talking about $1,400 in addition to the 600 that was already given.
Yeah, I definitely think that we will pass the 2000 stimulus. There's been rumors going around that it was going to happen this week, but I don't see that being the case. But I definitely think within hopefully within the next couple of weeks we get something in terms of the 2000 coming our way. But I believe that this will happen, and there's 65% of Americans that agree with reoccurring 2K stimulus. I believe that this can help us during this crisis.
Oh, when it comes to our president and all these like runarounds and everything else, are you obviously we got corruption in our politics, and a big thing is I feel like in general society doesn't have the ability to have personal connections and conversations with people in power. And when you're coming on here, running, it allows us to have the conversation with you. Um, but that becomes less and less the ability when you're actually in office. Do you think you would make sure to go out of your way to continue open dialogue with actual citizens? Because I feel like some of the senators we have now are so disconnected from reality.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Most of the senators they disagree with a lot. It don't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I think we as all the senators in office, I believe that they should all come together and just help out, the people. I Regardless if you're a Republican or a Democrat, that I believe that we can get a lot more done if we just work together.
Yeah, well, if they talk to each other during this time, even though they're not completely convened, right? They're not actually in session, they can get things done. I mean, just like we're talking right now, and the talking is probably, most of the work. So, but the question is, do they have the will to do that, or are they just gonna, try to drag it out? So, and basically obstruct any sort of real work happening. So, I like that the Democrats were able to get it done very quickly, and they were like, "We're going to go ahead with this impeachment." They got it done, and so that is possible in the Senate if only there was the will.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. Again, though, I don't see as the type of people who are going to, a lot of them have hardwalled themselves into an ideology, right? And they are planted firmly in it. And sometimes it takes some time for that kind of thing to like fade away, more time and more distance than I think they have to reverse course on what they've committed themselves to. Quite a few of these Republican senators.
I'll pull it out from the weeds. That's what you do from the roots. Kind of crazy. They're wholesale like in a cult, which is kind of dangerous because Mary Trump, who is the nephew of Donald, is like, I can't believe that these House Republicans are like in this cult when I'm like a family member of his, and like but I don't know. It's like there it it's eventually it's just gonna wear off. It's just a matter of time. It's just a distraction. It's all just a distraction to distract from them having like no policies and no ideas of their own, nothing to do to help. They dive into the culture war nonsense idiocy.
You nailed it. And what sucks is like it works. What do you do, right? What do you do?
So I think the biggest thing is in my research, one of the big hubs of information comes from influencers. Me and Kai had worked through this diagram of interconnectedness, right? And essentially, the influencers have strings into all the different aspects, but they need open communication with, the courts, the legislation, uh, all of it. They really just need full communication. But we had the Yang Media blackout. We were actively canceled by one of the most watched networks. It's criminal what happened.
So, and I think what that touches on is really that we've experienced a commodification of information and press. So like it used to be that you could own your own printing press and make your own stuff, and that's how it was done. And it's just it's been so co-opted into this big mega empire. And especially with the removal of the fairness doctrine, like we're not getting this fair, balanced, equitable coverage anymore. And with C-SPAN replacing actual public congressional hearings where people go and participate, now there's all this stuff happening behind closed doors that was very different before cable commodified our information. And so it's just there's so many layers to all of the kind of things that are necessary for a healthy democracy. And I think most people haven't been connected to this is what's happened over the years.
I would really like to see a policy impacting the ability of influencers to safely and cheaply communicate, because if you don't have money, right, if you're poor, you good luck. So my little chart that I've made, I pulled it from immune system response, and the influencers communicate to advocates, they communicate to courts, they communicate to legislation, they get activated by the courts, they have investments that are activated into the influencers if they are trying to push a message, say it's an emergency, right? They also are able to activate knowledge acquisition. People can start investigating. They communicate to physical health services. They allow to get actual things in areas, or at least awareness, right? They also are activated when security things need to be addressed or emergency services. They also activate money storage, so they can get communication out there, and they have they mutually activate production of goods and services. If you cut off the media, you've literally just cut off all of those resources right there.
So I find it really interesting that right now, trending right now, is they're talking about 29% is the new approval rating for Donald Trump as he's leaving office. Whereas like 58% in this Pew Research Center poll that was just conducted are saying that they approve of how Biden has explained what his policies will be and what his plans are. I think this is looking good for us if we can just actually, accomplish some of the things that
I think
Biden is talking
Bush
about.
is just happy like he's no longer like the worst now.
But
I don't
I think his approval rating must have was being propped up by the fact that he was actually wanting to give us that $2,000, and that was the major policy that people really liked from Donald Trump, I would think. Does
Yeah, that's
anybody else
true,
have
but
a?
I'm
I don't
sort of
know.
trying to think that that was just like a ruse, because the minute he announced that, then he went back to talking about like election fraud. He just wanted to do that, and then like the minute he did that, he's like, I still won, and maybe I can still be your president. So it was a last very ditch desperate attempt to do that. But I'm glad it happened. Even though like after it was like really dumb.
Well, I don't know if Austin is familiar because this is your first time on our Discord, but if you take a look in the live streamed chat text channel while we're podcasting, you can actually see a couple of infographics that I have pulled from the internet, and if you click on them, they'll get big, and so you can see the most recent polls there. And I
Okay.
just find that, yeah, like incredible that, finally after all of this, his approval rating is dropping precipitously.
That's a good looking chart there. um,
I mean, and this is ongoing for the last 4 years. 4 years we've been waiting for his approval to finally drop. And for people, I feel like that should have happened when he started saying that the hurricane, right, was going to go in some direction because his magic marker said so. I was like, why isn't this the moment when, we break out of our mass hysteria that he knows anything?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer that from a kind of clinical standpoint, which is that if you've been gaslit for decades, then like the reason isn't there. Like you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, of course the scientists got it wrong. Of course they did, because you've been taught to trust your abuser. There's a whole Stockholm thing. Well, I think the capital day of reckoning happened, and this is where, oh, he's going to turn on every single one of us, isn't he? He has no, like, he lost people that were loyal with him to the very end, because he allowed then the FBI to go track people down who left DC without handcuffs. We can get away with it. No, you can't. And he doesn't have your back. And I think that, ultimately, we are human beings. We're connected to each other. We need each other to survive. We're not in this alone. and his followers and the people that were the most devout, believing that he was representing their best interest, realized he doesn't represent anybody. And I think that was really it was that magical moment that happens. It was the rock bottom of American democracy and American politics. Frankly, I don't think Biden's going to fix it. I think the 100 days of house arrest that he's said that he's going to issue for all of us because of the pandemic, which I think is absolutely necessary, needs to be issued as a 100-day debt jubilee. And we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to spend that 100 days sitting at home doing what we're doing here on Discord, doing what we do on Zoom, meeting with our local elected officials and the people currently elected to represent us. But we're going to have some really honest conversations, and they're going to go then and state by state, we're going to decide, how does this look like from here on out? Because the truth of the matter is, if we continue to operate government with these weird arbitrary boundaries and regions and lines, we are not going to survive what Mother Nature is dishing out for us. It's not going to happen. And this is what my children are worried about. This is what, the people that are aging into being able to vote are super concerned about, more so than they are really concerned about our democracy. They're worried about what happens when the flood comes. And is there going to be a boat for them, or are they going to drown? And this is where I say, no, we can
enough
do
with the
this.
culture wars, because it's like we just want to be happy and like live life and do our things, but they keep distracting us with this nonsense. And it's funny when you mention the flood, because remember the Trump boat parade, and all the bigger boats sank the smaller ones. And that's what happens with Trump. All the little people who are his tiny little minions, they just sink because they're not as important. But all the people with the money and the power and the reach, they kind of like survive. But when worse comes to worse, Trump's not even paying Giuliani's legal fees. So everyone's just cannibalizing each other in that movement. And that's just where it comes to when you're dealing with malignant narcissists.
Well, I want to point out something. If we look at uncontrolled growth in a human body, we call that cancer, right? We have uncontrolled wealth that has accumulated as a tumor practically, and we need to be able to operate on it so we can have a returned immune system to the way it's supposed to be. And we need to recognize where things need to be in balance again. We have to be able to just balance the scales in general. Everything in our system is trying to self-correct by Yang Gang activating, by us trying to do the policies, by every action that we've been taking. We are behaving very similar to the immune system response. But the problem is we still are struggling because of finances. Because guess who has all the finances? It's where the snake bites its tail, okay? That's where it's at. We need to be able to regurgitate the tail and go continue back on our way. Don't everyone jump
Become
in
very
all at
quiet all of a
once.
sudden. Yeah, was there a technical error?
No, I think everyone.
Let me lighten the mood.
Did I mess up?
Austin, are you still with us?
Yeah. Yep.
So how are you feeling? What do you think of our crazy little podcast?
No, it's very interesting topics.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Thank you. We're basic income advocates, and we try to be friends, because the better friends we are, the more powerful we are when we work together to get basic income passed. So let me ask a semi-serious question, Austin. It's also semi-humorous, but not entirely a joke. Have you considered, in light of your background, dropping a diss track on your incumbent opponent? All right. I've tried to lighten the mood too hard, I think. I'm going to go ahead. Let the mood sink. Back to the sort of comfortable middling mood. Now, there we are. Anyway.
Dale, I
I'm
was
gonna
actually
just-
going back because I just discovered that Bart was on, and it wasn't on at the when we first started, and so I was filling in some of the information. So it'll actually work. You can export at the end of this session.
Good.
But
I think.
are you gonna,
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, like, what's going to become Trump's life once this is all said and done? And I think that can be a warning of, like, don't think that you people are the masters of the universe just because you have tons of money. I think that'll really do that because some people just think that they're invincible and they can just do whatever the hell they want without any consequences.
To answer that, I think he's going to go the way that probably Julian Assange was at, and is going to kind of probably have a far less positive outcome in the end. I think Assange is probably going to end up being freed, but Trump's going to end up having his feet held to the fire if he lives that long.
Yeah, we'll see. It's when's the last time an outsider became president? Maybe like JFK, maybe? I don't know.
He wasn't an outsider. Come on now.
No, it's true. He wasn't. So
to answer the question, Carter-ish.
No, Jimmy Carter.
Harry Truman, to be honest.
Yeah, that was quite some time ago.
Harry
and like, I really,
long time ago.
who is to say who is an insider is the thing and who is an outsider, and it's not really even a binary, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to get Trump. He might just decide to go to another country and go live in a castle.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. I think he's going to go try to hide out. Nobody's going to.
I think he'll succeed. I think he'll hide out and they'll let him. I think they will.
Maybe.
Because it's going to
They
be.
already know where he is.
He's going to make himself
right?
too much. He's going to make himself more trouble than he is worth, which is a skill he has in spades.
But they already know
he's
where
going
he
to
is.
end up floating on a boat in the middle of the ocean.
He is going to make himself more trouble than he's worth. But maybe, who knows? Maybe he will end up floating on a boat.
So I
Well,
want to bring up. Oh, you can continue on this if you want. Sorry.
No, I don't want to continue. I don't want, because as soon as he's not the leader of the free world, who cares? He's just another person. He can go do whatever. He needs to stay away from the business of
The
fixing everything that's wrong.
The problem is he's got his name on everything, and
Yeah.
it's not even. He
Not
might
for much
be-
longer.
Yeah, you
Well,
think? Maybe not.
No,
I mean, he's got a lot
his
of
name's
things
coming
to
down
help
right
with.
now, and it's because he has been so disastrous that even the banks are like, nope, those are our buildings. You owe us; they belong to us. And this is like the myth of like we don't really own property. It's on lease to us from the government. It doesn't belong to. It belongs to the government. It belongs to the United States or whatever your municipality or however it's defined, right? Those buildings don't belong to him just because they have his name on it.
Yeah.
And he should know that better than anybody. Those buildings belong to the banks that funded them. And they always will, and they will never change that.
Man, I just
What's a little
can't.
sad?
Yeah.
What's a little sad is he didn't even pay everybody who helped build the buildings. He kind of stiffed a few people, which is even worse because his debt, might be taken care of. He might get a paycheck from those people, and it's really the citizens who helped build it that are suffering. I want to bring up something called the World Economic Forum that's coming up in shortly, like 1 to 2 weeks or something. And, they technically have this open forum thing. And since we have a pandemic, it's going to be online, which means you don't have to get to Sweden, which is amazing, right? But this is a place that has
I think you mean Switzerland.
yeah, sorry, Switzerland. But it's got so many billionaires, billion with a B, who go there. And these are the people who are going to buy out all the stuff when, we have economic collapse. These are the people who are going to buy all the housing, all the hospital, but they go to this economic forum under the guise of we're going to help find how to help climate change or cancer or all these things that do matter and it is very important. But the problem is it's that wealth that they have that's causing all of the problems. If the World Economic Forum really wanted to actually do its job, literally they just need to give money to the people. And I think Andrew Yang or Scott Santens or somebody from the Yang Gang or all of us need to try and flood that forum and get in there, because we have the policies, we have the voice, we have the drive.
Well, it's interesting that we're having this discussion in 2020 because in like 1976, there was a senator on the floor making the argument for universal basic income. And one of the contrarians on the opposite side is like, well, Senator, you're acting like the solution to poverty is to just throw money at the problem. And the senator in response was very clear. Absolutely, Senator. I am telling you that the solution to poverty is money. And that didn't
And
go
that's
well.
perfect. But that's perfect. That's exactly true. It's so weird because I find it's true of little kids that they can't identify, the solution to simple things like, well, if you're hungry, what should you do? Or if you're, if you need to use the restroom, maybe you should just get up, and just go do that. And I'm like, here we are adults and we still can't figure out that if you don't have money, maybe the solution is just money.
But
So
we work
simple.
so very hard to cultivate all these cottage industries around this very profitable poverty. We just have to keep
my
it going.
goodness.
We got to keep it
What if
going. We can't stop it now.
Oh, but we can. We
No,
can.
we're
And the
invested.
pandemic has proved
All right,
it.
have you heard of the sunken investment fallacy?
Sunk cost fallacy. Yes,
cost,
no,
yeah.
that's a real
The
thing.
synonyms.
Really, we absolutely just need to give money to the people, because then we're going to self-correct a lot of the things that these little organizations that have been built are just not going to be able to fill in the gaps. Obviously, we're in canyons right now. Give us the money. We know how to spend it. And if we don't, guess what? We're going to learn, and then we'll level up. We'll get smarter. We'll get better. We'll get
Well,
stronger.
and it happens organically that where there's a need, there's always going to be somebody willing to fill it if they see it and have the space to process what they're seeing. And rather than, but I'm too busy. I have to keep walking. I can't pick up that garbage that someone else left. So this is where the pandemic has given us the opportunity to slow everything way the fuck down and be able to be like, oh, there's a lot of trash in my neighborhood. And instead of waiting for the city to pick it up, I got time. I need to be outside. I don't want to be cooped up inside anymore. So I'm going to go pick up some trash with my mask on my face, say hi to my neighbors. And I think this is what the organic consequence of the pandemic is. So if nature communicates to us at all, this is how it's being done. It's forcing us back into a natural, organic, local community. And from that spot, you build solutions. It's versus this weird top-down thing that we've been doing for however long. That doesn't work. It doesn't work
So-
as well as other things.
Yeah, one of
But
the
it's-
great things, one of the policies that Austin had talked about in his, top 5 priorities was the housing issues and how to make housing more affordable. So the UBI makes a lot more different types of housing affordable, and it allows you to, choose a different place to live if you need to move in order to be able to afford a place, first you got to afford that, initial investment of moving. And you need to be able to afford the, the down payment or the down, the security deposit or whatever it is. It's always a big expense. And so I think it works very well with Austin's other policies there.
Well, it's that, and you could also get an Airbnb or you could get a hotel. Maybe you needed to get away from an abusive partner and you just had to get out. And you don't have time to fill out 10,000 forms for new housing, okay?
Or those of us who are, comfortable just kind of being unrooted and the wandering nomad, right? A basic income enables us to go do those things. And this is where I say that the structure that we've built in the economy has kind of de facto turned everything into a business, turned everything into this profit machine, even the things that were once based solely on charity. We are no longer able to do those things because, well, I got to pay taxes, and if I'm going to get anywhere, I got to pay for the use of a vehicle and all sorts of other things. And then all of a sudden, that's the chain around my ankle. And about the only thing that's left anymore that's free is walking. And even that'll get you fined if you're doing it in the wrong place at the wrong time, which is crazy. We're bipedal animals. We weren't born with wheels.
Do you, Austin, do you see the UBI as being, so do you think a $1,000 per month UBI would be a sufficient start? Or do you think the 2,000 is more? Because people have been talking about both these days.
Yeah, at the start of UBI, 1,000 was the main goal. But I think now that we're talking about 2K, it's like everyone wants 2K. Especially during this pandemic. I think 2K, absolutely.
What are the chances that we get something retroactively at this point, or something that's recurrent? Do you think one of these options might happen?
I believe that that we will have a recurring stimulus. How much? I don't know. I believe that Joe Biden will make it happen.
That's awesome, because a lot of people really have a failure of trust right now, and in someone who has been in government for a long time, like Joe Biden.
I heard from the Hill, the good news is that Joe Biden doesn't evoke that kind of like holier than thou art kind of attitude that kind of Obama and Hillary had. He's like more of like Scranton working class instead of like, I'm Ivy League and I know how to talk and I'm so concerned about our culture and I'm more important than you are because I can use big words. So that should help.
It's kind of his aesthetic,
some-
but he supports the same exact policies as Obama.
Well,
So-
if things are going to change, well, he would have never supported this stimulus. That's for sure. So, I mean, we can really push. He's pushable. He's a little more.
He's paying it lip
yeah.
service, but he has the power to make it happen.
Well,
he's choosing not to.
doing it.
He's not
doing it.
He's not doing it. He hasn't done a damn thing yet. Let's not say he's doing it until he is doing it.
Well,
Yeah.
he said he would, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. You gotta push them. You can't just be all like, "Oh, it's all over. I'll hope it's lost." You gotta push.
I think he has put out an agenda, Searle. He's put out an agenda, and it's public record right now that we can take a look at and discuss and argue about.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he's going to actually accomplish it or plans to accomplish it even.
Well, what else is an agenda if not the goal, right? So,
he could have
hope-
a bad faith agenda to placate us that he does not plan to actually accomplish. I think that is pretty typically what presidents do, because if you look at their agendas, they never get it done and they don't really seem to try.
well, considering that there's a lot of opposition in the Congress, it's not easy to do. Certainly, people
Right.
believed that there was a lot of obstruction in, during Obama's
McConnell.
era.
Look, like McConnell like blocked everything. Seriously. Yeah.
Which is why we went for Georgia. This is why Faye went to Georgia to help, clear up these obstructions, and hopefully things can
Right.
get done. But now we've got, then the whole impeachment is going to become the circus of distraction. So
Well,
I'd love to
if they're
pivot now.
busy, if they're busy with that paperwork, they're not going to have time to do the other paperwork, right? And especially if people are storming the Capitol, they're going to be stressed out and probably less effective too because of trauma-induced, adrenaline response, and that might put them on autopilot, which makes them way more manipulatable. I think it's really easy for them to be so distracted that it's just going to be this smoke screen. And I'm on board with Shale. I think honestly, until I see it, I won't believe it, because I think we've been like, our chain has been jerked far too much. I honestly, all my research, I personally don't believe it's going to happen unless we, the people, are able to communicate to our fellow neighbors, to everybody, about what's happening. The Yang media blackout, the fact that Andrew Yang was able to successfully get money into the hands of the people during this pandemic. We have policies out of the wazoo. Why are they not even acknowledging any of this? That's a problem. These are red flags. Nobody's even looking at them.
So, yeah, I think this is an interesting time for us to say happy birthday to Andrew Yang, whose birthday just passed on the 13th. And that's when he made his official, declaration that I am now going to be running for mayor of New York City. And hopefully all of the birthday presents coming in will be donations towards that cause. We're looking at a time when things are pretty polarized. But when you're looking at 29%, right, we're saying that 29% is a pretty low number for approval rating for a sitting president, even one that's leaving. But the problem is, I think that 29%, what people are really saying on Twitter is they're saying that is too high. So people are still upset at the fact that there are people who support Donald Trump. But the real reason is 29% of the population being unhappy with the situation and supporting somebody who's saying that I am still the legitimate winner, even though when he isn't, is going to continue causing terrorist style attacks in the rest of our nation. We just don't know who's going to be attacked next. We don't know if, I feel like we need to, we're currently in a state of, fear, right? Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Dude, contracting is so hard. Like,
We can't hear you,
we
Faye.
can't hear you.
We are having a chain of technical difficulties. We are having several different kinds of technical difficulties at the same time. There's an audible echo. Okay, that's fixed now. Kaizen is frozen. Faye, I'm not sure if we can hear you. We can hear you.
Can hear me
Okay.
now.
All right.
But
There
I
we go.
can't hear Kai, and I think Kai was trying to speak, so I tried to allow her to speak. But I guess I'll continue. But it seems like the 29% of people who are still supporting Trump at this point is still a terrifying number for people who feel that this is related to some of the violence that's going on. And so I guess I was wondering, do you fear any sort of violence in Utah where you are, Austin?
No, I think with violence, Utah is, not one of the violent states like most.
That's good. That's wonderful, because in Texas, I'm not so sure. But I feel like the real problem is that the people who committed the violence, right, actually went from one state to another. They were not, people who lived in DC. People actually flew, right, or drove, or uh, transported themselves from another state in order to make trouble. It's almost like we have to up security for everybody who is a possible future target. And it could be, a progressive leader like AOC. It could be, all sorts of random targets that we haven't necessarily considered. And so, with that many people in the nation unhappy, this may turn out to be to be yet another year full of violence and and unrest.
I don't think it's going to be a year of violence and unrest. I don't think
Well, that's why I'm hoping that in that first 100 days, Biden will be able to accomplish something. If not, and you can't say it's always Biden doing it, but the Senate and the Congress will actually, accomplish things so that they can demonstrate that they are effective leaders. Because I don't know if there's anything that can calm us down now other than being effective and actually, governing properly.
Unfortunately, that is just not a thing that is incentivized at all for the people who do the governing. So I don't think we're going to get it.
So you don't think this level of fear for them is sufficient to do anything? Because fear is not actually very motivating.
I'm not sure how afraid they really are. I think they're sort of demonstrating fear for political advantage, and they're just going to create a new Patriot Act 2.0 that limits, that just expands the surveillance state, limits our rights and freedoms, oppresses us, and that will make them feel safe, and they will continue unabated to do what they do, run the government in their, corporate cronyist way.
Well, I think if we could just for once in our lives realize that advertisers are taking all the political money and they're the ones who are winning the elections, right? They're the ones who are lining their pocketbooks, okay? And we need to just take that money, give it to activists who want to do grassroots activism and fund them so we can actually do the things we want to do. Partner with nonprofits that are actually doing the work. Find, your tribal gatherings and maybe have fun charitable events and raise money for these people or something, because unfortunately right now, until we get our own people in there, we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I don't think anything's going to get done unless we start taking the money out of the advertisers' pockets and put it into the hands of the people like
the,
you and me.
the good news is that this guy, I don't remember his name, but when Yang was campaigning for mayor of New York, there was a 33-year-old congressman, finally 32-year-old congressman, black gay guy, helping him out. And also John Ossoff is 33 years old. So I like seeing all this young new blood, and we just need more of that. We just need to keep doing more of that. And
I
think
agree,
with
but
go
go ahead.
the damage of the Trump thing movement is that when we run more UBI candidates, they're not going to be eclipsed with this MAGA mania.
Yeah, that was a great distraction technique, that's for sure. But so are going to be these, rallies on the footsteps of places, right? That, like, I have issues with the fact that there's a distinct distraction technique happening, especially with our media on these people, and I think it's only increasing the fear and divisiveness.
So I think another issue that's going on, there are two really interesting things going on right now in the current events, which is one is, Twitter deciding to go ahead and ban, you know, the POTUS from continuing his speech on their platform, and everyone banning giant corporations deciding not to allow Parler I don't know how you said that, Parler, in French, to continue, uh, fomenting in their way. And so there's that going on here. And then we've got in China, Jack Ma is trying to keep his head under the radar. And people are saying, where did Jack Ma go? And because China is cracking down on their corporations. And so I find that really interesting that there's these two things going on, illustrating the differences between our two systems. That in China, the corporations
We can't hear you, Faye.
Thank you, Amber.
We haven't heard you for a while.
By the way, Richie Torres was the name of that congressman with the Yang.
I wanted to roll back while Faye's getting reset back up again, to the 29% approval rating. And did you guys catch what I said? Because my connection on this end froze. We have bad weather.
Refresh our memory. How's that?
No, you
So
cut out there.
this
Yeah.
is this is something that I'm pulling straight out of the War on Normal People. I think that 29% reflects terrified white men who no longer have a place in this world. They know what's happening. And I'm not talking about Searle or necessarily any one of us here. I'm talking about,
I'm very comfortable with having no place in this world.
well, no, but I think right?
and it
Okay.
definitely is happening to Shale.
Well, but and I don't want to be exclusionary on any level, but I'm specifically talking about what the truck drivers and the retail workers whose jobs are going away, and these are like foundational positions in our economy that are going to be gone in 5 to 10 years. And where do those people go? And are we just going to let them die? And that's ridiculous. And the pandemic just accelerated everything.
Think about it, though. The World Economic Forum is run mostly by rich white men. Okay, like I think the World Economic Forum needs to be
But
investigated.
yeah, like rich white men don't have any like empathy or concern for poor white men, and I think that's what the poor white men aren't getting.
This is where I think that we have some soul searching to do just in general. That how we treat each other matters more than anything in living experience, like the day-to-dayness. And generally in my day-to-day world, people are very generous and kind and forgiving, and that was even true even when horrible things happened to me. So I think that we need to have kind of this truth and reconciliation. And Karen and I were talking about this as we were still streaming after we all closed out of broadcasting on Sunday. We got to come clean about some stuff in order to be able to move forward. And this is why I say, like even just my idea of having Chautauqua, which is way less intrusive and way less disruptive than calling for a 100-day debt jubilee, which is actually very Christian in its basis. So I don't see how anybody could give solid, foundational pushback on it. It's a good idea. People have done it before. It's just, what are we going to do? Like, what's happening now has to stop and immediately, not in 6 months, not in 2 years. And Austin, I do want you to run and I want you to win, because there's no reason that we can't have people in power in those offices who know what it is to be a public servant first and not self-servant. And that's Trump is like the pinnacle, the apex, right, of what it looks like when you're self-serving.
I think on the whole white male note, and I am a white male, so with
Hi,
grace
Chris.
if you want. Hey, I think everyone should be careful with any kind of rhetoric that sort of puts the onus of blame on a particular population, because we've seen this in previous generations being done with, quote unquote, the welfare queens. And I see a lot of symmetry in terms of how that is being wielded now, except now we have what sort of in the guise of social justice, a vilifying of white men who happen to be more vulnerable, in which case you get they're not anything that hurts that's used to like hurt these poor white men is also probably going to hurt a lot of other communities. It's going to be used as a legitimation technique for austerity and hurting people who are, also in the same industries. Like not every trucker is a white male. It's going to be there's always going to be a collateral damage, I think, from any kind of scapegoating or kind of identity-based vilification.
When it comes to trucking in particular, I'm just going to extrapolate based on my interactions with people that have that industry or have people in that industry, is that team trucking is the profitable way to do it. And so you have a lot of married couples that's 100%, and they're independent contractors, and they're making bank. They set their own schedules. And what happens when the AI trucks take that away from them? Like, oh, it gets so scary. Like, it really gets scary when you think of all the people that are going to be left without some place to go. And I don't mean that in a physical sense, but without some place to go with their time, because we're so
Yeah,
attached to a time clock.
Chris, I don't think that there is any vilification going on in the pointing out that there's a lot of white male dominated industries that are being automated away, right? I don't think we're vilifying anybody in that sense. It's just that there's going to be a wave of anger, from people who are used to a certain, lifestyle and who are able to maintain a certain style and are no longer going to be able to do that. As Trump pointed out very clearly, through no fault of their own, it's all China. So, it's all about China. So let's vilify China is what we're doing. We're not vilifying white people or white men,
It's no, I mean, I'm not even like singling out this group in particular, but I see in like the broader strokes a way of using white men as a way to avoid universality for a lot of programs. And I think ultimately that what looks like sort of like a racialized social justice is actually going to probably end up being more of like an upper middle class and like middle class relief program, I think. But
again, it's like we're not. I don't think we're vilifying white men by pointing this out. What we're actually afraid of is the backlash, the racial backlash that's going to happen when the white men are pointing fingers outwards to, okay, what's happening? It's not the automation. That's not coming into their minds. I'm competing. Instead, they're saying, well, I must be competing with Mexicans, or I must be competing with an outsider, somebody who's not,
seeing some of that. Like that everybody thinks tastes his balls and died at the event. He's a former Obama voter and a former union guy, actually. But he was essentially radicalized when a lot of the jobs in his area became were outsourced and destroyed, and he became more radical over time. He moved away from that. So I think, generally speaking, you're gonna see people become more radical. And I think what the left in general has to look out for is, are you pushing those people towards that type of radicalization as opposed to offering them an alternative narrative?
Yeah,
And
we don't want to, we were trying to avoid the scapegoating and the sort of the blaming game that happens when these things start happening. We know that the anger is coming. We just want to direct the conversation to the right things. Let's take a look at automation. Let's take a look at how technology is changing the world and how, things are not the same. Rather than saying, well, let's find a group of people that we can fight, because it's all about ramping up the fight, and out competing somebody. Well, how can you outcompete a machine?
Austin, you've been kind of quiet. I would like to hear your thoughts on automation and stuff when it comes to when you're running. Like, what are your thoughts on policies or anything like that?
Yeah, automation is definitely coming a lot quicker. I think Andrew Yang brought it to a lot of us in regards to automation. I certainly had no idea about it until Andrew Yang started talking about it. But we have seen automation definitely growing down here in Utah.
So that's something that's probably beneficial for Utah in many ways, as well as deleterious in others, right? So it's something that, but it's hard to reverse time. So as time is progressing, we've seen the older leaders of our nation have sometimes said, well, we'll just bring all the jobs back into our country. But when in fact, they're laying off people in China, they're laying off people in Mexico and other places where they've done a lot of the manufacturing work because they've got, robots there now. So as the world is coming up, we're all going to be in it together.
And that's where I go back to this concept of, kind of erasing the arbitrary boundaries that this nations and states are built upon. We need to transcend all of that thinking, because we're in a whole new paradigm with what is coming and what has already come, and we're in this big social and cultural lag and emotional, like the way that we've restructured the organic functioning of the human society is has gone so rapidly. I mean, we're talking 100 years, 120 years, really. And where we went from being a mostly agricultural, everybody produced food for themselves. We were almost entirely a subsistence based economy. There were very few super wealthy. There were no big conglomerates. There was no aggregate anything really. It was just kind of a little bit unstructured, but more organic, so to speak. And then and now we're living with machines that serve us all the time.
So I think it's great that we wrapped around to talking about how Andrew Yang started his campaign and how we all got together and how we came to know Austin. And Austin, it's nearing the end of our scheduled time together. So I'd like to ask you if you would like some people to reach out to you by social media and get involved in the campaign. How can people do that?
Yeah, they can reach me out. I'm most of the time on Twitter. It's just Austin T. Searle, which is just my Twitter handle. Definitely reach out to me on there.
So your Twitter handle has the letter T as in Tom in the middle, Austin T. Searle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's just my middle initial.
Okay. All right, that's a great way to find Austin. And would anyone else like to do a closing before we head out?
I'll go next. Okay. My
Sounds
name
good.
is Faye Doney. My Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok handle is Tisdoney, TISDONEY. I am still working on a lot of projects. I need somebody who maybe knows editing to give me some ideas about my next few steps when coming to putting together my documentary. But now I finally have an outline, so that's beautiful. Woo! So things are moving quite beautifully in the right direction, and I think if I can get that assistance on just learning like programs I need, so please reach out to me on Twitter at Tisdoney if you have any leads. I will pass it off to Kai.
My name is Kai Zen KC. That is at KAIZEN I'm based out of Kansas City, Missouri, and that's my handle on Twitter and Patreon and Cash App. I live on alms and some workman's comp at this point. So anything people want to send, I'm looking at traveling. And actually, Austin, the next one of the destinations that's on my list is your neck of the woods. So I'm so glad I got a chance to meet you. I myself was considering running for 2022 against Roy Blunt here in Missouri. I have not made a decision on that yet, but I'm certainly helping everybody. So let's make sure we stay connected. I can help you work on all sorts of stuff, even remotely.
Austin, what kind of support would you be looking for if anybody was actually out there in wanting to be there in person physically? Because a lot of things are virtual right now during the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of, tough with the pandemic and stuff. Probably just, hand out flyers and kind of, getting getting my name out there and letting people know that I'm running and why I'm running.
Do you have some flyers already prepared?
I do. Yeah,
That's
definitely
so
do.
awesome.
I've handed out quite a few. Obviously, it takes a lot of people to help get the message out than just doing it yourself.
Well, I'm glad you're making. Would this be considered a pretty early start, or is this like pretty typical timing?
It's pretty. It's still early. Mike Lee hasn't declared that he's running again. I'm hoping he does because I just want to destroy him. But
Looking forward to that, huh?
yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I'm at Palestine Math MATH on Twitter. So PALESTINE MATH, and I would love to pass to Ariel.
Sure. Ariel, and you can find me on Twitter at Ariels. That's ARIELS, and I'm on YouTube.com/revolutionary thinking.
All right. And Moto, are you ready to give us your outgoing?
Yeah, I'm Moto. You can find me on Twitter at MOTO_MOTES.
Awesome. And I think that's it, Shale.
All right, thank you. My name is Searle Riley. My Twitter is Searle Riley, SHAELRILEY. Before I go, Austin, I just want to explain. I am a musician myself, singer, songwriter, music producer, all genres. I love hip hop included. very much.
Nice.
And I was not, you know, I was not like talking down to you or anything. It was just a good natured joke. Totally quiet, totally serious. So, but yeah, I often plug my my music group and our Patreon, which has nothing to do with this show. But if you're interested, it's patreon.com/The Grammar Club. We're a music group. So Austin, thank you so much for coming on. It was a fascinating conversation. Very good to meet you. We will be here to support you in your campaign. If you need help, if you need people to do a hashtag on Twitter or whatever you need, just please come back to the Discord. We are a hub for UBI advocacy, so we'll be in touch. And it was good meeting you. And thank you again for the good work you're doing. So
Thank you for running, even more than thanking you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure of speaking with all of you and getting to talk to you guys and know you guys. It's definitely a pleasure.
Yeah, best of luck. If anything comes up or you need help with anything, we're always here.
We got Friday Night Firefight as our next show, which I'm excited for. I'm going to play some first-person shooters with Sheridan. We started Friday Night Firefight so we would have a place for the first-person shooters to go and they wouldn't usurp the original intent of the social stream, which was to be welcoming and play accessible games for everyone. But we're still going to do that. So Friday Night Firefight, me and Sheridan, you want to see us play Quake Live tonight? Is what I'm doing. What I think we're doing that. So we also talk politics too. We talk politics while we play. So if you're in the chat, you can talk with us. I'm going to be attending to the chat for the first time with the new setup. So I'm going to look at the Twitch and YouTube chat tonight. What do you miss, Faye?
I miss our Jackbox games.
Have you looked at the schedule this weekend?
I need to look again. So
Jackbox is happening tomorrow night.
Can we tell everyone about our...
Jackbox is making a return tomorrow night, 8 to 10 at our social stream.
So, Austin, you are always welcome to check into our in our Discord. We have a text channel called Schedule. And on the schedule, it will show the other guests that we have lined up and our social streams. And you are welcome to join us for any of those at any time. If you see somebody, for example, on I believe on Sunday we're going to be speaking with Giselle Huff. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And who are we speaking to tomorrow? Let me take a look. Ooh, this is really exciting. Michaela Wilkes. So another beautiful human being who ran for
cut out again, Faye.
I'm actually done talking. So
what
sometimes
did Michaela Wilkes run for?
Oh, what did she run for? I think she's in Maryland. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, we'll talk to her tomorrow.
Okay, great.
And don't forget, on Sunday, we have Giselle from the Fund for Humanity.
That's right. All right.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.